Well, this evening we are here again for a special session of our oral history, looking at some of the folks who are not buried in Antioch Cemetery but have made a big impact on the church. For sake of history, today, I don't know if any of you saw this, Jimmy Carter died.
Yeah, Jeff.
Did he? No, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, 100 years old, Jimmy Carter died.
I said yesterday where he was.
Yeah, he made it to 100. So, good Southern Baptist. Jimmy Carter was a, and from what obviously I wasn't there, but
liked him.
I was going to say I heard a lot of good things about his presidency. So I pray he's made it to the other side well. Well, this evening we have Michael Schultz speaking along with Jennifer Delp, Gail Sears, Calvin Williams, Jeff McIntosh, Nancy Harris, Joyce McIntosh, and Michael Christian. And we begin this evening looking at Mr. Wilmer Sears, born 1917, died 1979, as well as his wife, Mammy Nell, born as Stinson. Born 1919, died 2002. Miss Jennifer, did you know these two?
Yes, Mr. Wilmer and Mamie Nell. Of course, I knew Mamie Nell more so, but he was, I understand, a wonderful Sunday school teacher. Mama just loved him when she was in his class because he was so knowledgeable. Not to be a preacher or anything like that. She said she'd never seen anybody that was as knowledgeable as he was, that wasn't trained, more or less. And of course, Mamie Nell, me and her used to take trips together, bus trips. And
Where'd you go?
Canada.
Canada. That's a long trip.
Yeah, we enjoyed it. We went a couple times. And we went to Mackinac Island once. So, yeah, we had fun. She'd tell you what she thought, but, she was a lot of fun to be around. And of course, she always took real good care of Loretta. I'm sure Loretta was lost without her when she passed away, but there's, of course, Mamie Nell, she was always in Bible school and everything, helping. It's real good people.
Well, now, Gail, you'll know more about these than most anybody else. I want to make sure you say whatever you like, but I do want to make sure that you tell us about when your father passed. You've told me that story a couple of times. I want to make sure we get to that, but you say whatever you'd like to say about these.
I was 62.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Who you want to talk about, Mom or now?
Start with Mom, yeah.
Okay, you want us to go on to the Wilmer, or you want to wait to get?
We'll get to Wilmer after you talk about your mom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, of course, she was an amazing woman. She had of course, she had 7 kids, but Loretta come along kind of late. We was gone, a bunch of us gone, but had 6 kids. I can remember when she had no electricity. I remember one thing, like she got her a Maytag washing machine, run off a gasoline engine, and it was sitting out there, and they were making an awful racket, and Grandma Stinson was kind of fussing about it, and she was sure proud of that washing machine. Of course, she had to draw water out of a well 110 foot deep, and then heated in an iron cooker. Then when got electricity, she got a little water heater stick in there that heat that water. and so it's just amazing what she went through. And so then when she finally got a job, she was so conservative that the plant manager had to come around and tell her to cash some of her checks. That would work at some factory.
Is that the one in Elkton?
Well, yeah, there's the Elkton then, and then in the Elkton then she worked at Russellville too. Okay. At different time after Loretta was born, but yeah, but she like you said, she made, and in her later life, she sewed for everybody, and she a really good seamstress, and she'd go to a woolen mill and get that remnant wool, and some of the higher class women said, I can tell when there was that, made that. Then she well said, this person over here wore this person over here. When the seams had to come up in the back, they had to match. Everything was perfect. And then in later life, she said, she quilted. She would hand stitch quilt, spend almost all winter on it, and they for people, they would take to the state fair.
Mm.
And she would do it, it was hand, it was all hand, it wasn't, and every stitch had to be perfect. And of course, in Forest, and like I said, 6 kids, we had a 49 Ford log truck that we rode in, that's about like an S10 Chevrolet. And we never missed a service. I heard her say one time, Glenn said he'd been in church since he was 2 weeks old. He'd been in church every service. I mean, and then he had to iron off clothes. She was sure glad when he got poking out on. Y'all remember that? But and of course I could talk all day about it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, how was she as a mother?
Huh?
How was she as a mother?
Oh, she made you. Now, put it this way: we had a big tree out behind the house. One time I was at my sister's in Nashville, and they lived in a duplex, and I was sitting out in the backyard reading a book, and I heard the woman in the next duplex over there tell her kid, said, "If you don't behave yourself, said I'm going to tell your daddy when you gets home, said he's going to whip you." I had never heard that before. We had a peach tree out there, never bearing no peaches until after everybody left. But she was loving, kind, but when her daddy won, when they said, you didn't talk back to them.
Well, how about Dad? What was Wilmer like?
Well, he wasn't as conservative as Mama. If it hadn't been for Mama, we'd never had nothing, I don't guess. But like she said, he was knowledge. He told the story when he was real young Christian, and he went to the association meeting, and somebody else that's supposed to speak wasn't there. They asked him to make the speech, give him something to what to speak on. He said, I just looked it over, and said a prayer. Said when I got done, said I was really highly complimented on what I said, so I didn't remember what I said.
Mm.
And like you said, and then I was telling that in Sunday school class one time, and I said he forgot what he said. Judy White said I didn't know he ever forgot anything, because he was so knowledgeable of the Bible. I mean, he was probably more knowledgeable than a lot of preachers that we had here, and he was so knowledgeable. And go ahead and tell about when he died.
Yeah, please do.
Well, I was lived there close, and I was the only child over there. And got over, he'd had a heart attack. And he didn't, and of course he was stubborn. Then you didn't have ambulances. You just called the funeral home, for the ambulance. And he wouldn't let us go. So we got him in the house. He got feeling better, got him in the house. And he's sitting there, and he says, "Do you remember?" He had a Bible laying on all the way. Don't matter. He come in at 11 o'clock at night. He said, "I'm reading that Bible." So he told me, said, "Get me my Bible." Said, "I wrote that Bible. I wrote it every day for the last 24 years. I don't want to miss a day." And he opened the Bible, 2 Corinthians 5:20. Said, "I beseech you, brothers, we're all ambassadors for Christ." That was the last words he said. And that's had a bigger impact on me than it.
Well, thank you. Calvin Wilmer and Mammy Nell Sears.
I remember them real well. Spent a whole lot of my life around their family. I stayed all night with them in school. Gail, I stayed all night with them. And I was really amazed. They had this little, what was it, 2-room house? The red one?
Well, we had 4 rooms, but we just stayed
4
2.
rooms.
We just stayed 2 of them.
Yeah. Well, anyhow, I was amazed that, they had no room at all for a big family. And Brother Wilmer, he was a good teacher. I don't know that I ever heard him, but I heard a lot of comments on him. He's really knowledgeable. He was a deacon, I think Wendy Gale.
Oh, yeah, he was a deacon, he's a church clerk,
Yeah, and he was a farmer. He done a lot of spraying tobacco for me. He had a nickname, and his nickname was Pocahontas.
well, I thought he monk.
And that's how we related to him. But Pocahontas, I need you to spray some tobacco for him. Well, it just tickled him to death, you know. And he was always honest about everything that I ever dealt with him. He was honest. Miss Mamie was she was a great church leader in Bible school. She was really fond of going to the nursing home. She was a great encourager. I first started doing the music. I was reluctant to do it because I had no experience. I had nothing. And I said, Miss Mamie, I said, I just don't feel right. The church needs something better. Oh, she said, Calvin March, you can do it. You can do it if you just kept on. You know, you guys, Miss Mamie, I just don't, I feel like I'm called to be a teacher. I said, I don't need them. Well, you said, you can do it. We pray for you. And she just kept on encouraging. And in Bible school, she was good with kids. Great mother, great family. Learned to love them all. They was really good in my life. We grew up together, most all of them. Miss Mamie now had sort of tough with a couple of the boys, but we all know who he was. But anyhow, we had a lot of fun together, enjoyed life, enjoyed church, and enjoyed being together. God bless that family, he really did. He did.
Let me just say one more thing about Daddy. Way he thought of when he passed away, had the funeral here at the church, and they were lined up plumb to 106 Highway over there. And the funeral director, Mr. Price, stood at the back door and counted how many come through in 30 minutes and multiplied it. He said, you know, 3,000 people. And him and Flint Hinton had a big sawmill down here in Lewisburg. It was the two biggest funerals he ever had.
And well looked on. Jeff, you would have been fairly young to have known Wilmer, but you might have known Mamie Nell a little
I
better.
don't remember Wilmer, but I do remember now. I think she was my first Sunday school teacher, if I'm not mistaken. And I know she did a lot of vacation Bible school stuff and helped out there in that area when we did vacation Bible school 5 days a week. That was a long time ago. But yeah, she was great.
Miss Nancy, what do you remember of Wilmer and Mamie Nell Sears?
I didn't know them until I came to Antioch. And there was a whole bunch of us that got married about that time. And we was in Juanita's class. And the walls were busting out. So they started a young couples class right over there in that room. And Wilmer was our teacher. He was a great teacher. He knew the Bible. There was nothing you couldn't ask him that he couldn't answer. I really thought the world of him and Mamie Nell, and he was our teacher until he died.
So when you joined, what was that, the 60s?
I joined in 1960, wasn't it?
I believe so. I think that's right. So you would have had him as your teacher for nearly 20 years. That's awesome. Miss Joyce, did you know these two?
I didn't know Wilmer like I did Mamie Nell. She went with us to the nursing home. She left to go there, and she was good in Bible schools. And I think she helped in the freshmen too. And she'd do whatever people would ask for her to do. She would do it. And she's a sweet woman. And she admired where she took care of Loretta. And Loretta just loved her, and she loved Loretta. And so I thought a lot of her. And I didn't know him very well.
Michael?
Yeah, I didn't, I wasn't involved with like his class or anything. I was still pretty young, but I remember, more about when we'd have Bible studies or something. A lot of his comments, you could tell he was very knowledgeable, and of course my mom and dad was in his class, and I mean I just thought he was the grandest teacher there ever was, and I know they enjoyed him. And of course, I was more involved with McNell in later years, you know, with carrying some of the, doing some of the trips and stuff, and we'd, you know, help carry them. We'd go places around here and enjoy being around her. I really don't remember. I probably had her as a teacher when I was little, but I really don't remember it. But, you know, she was always involved in the church. Of course, he was too, but like I said, I don't remember as much about him because he was more involved with, like, my parents, you know.
Well, next we have Leslie Williams, born 1915, died 2007. And wife, I have her Edith Galt, born a Wilson, born 1918, 2006. Miss Jennifer, did you know these two?
Oh, yeah, Brother Leslie and Miss Edith. Yeah, of course, Calvin's parents and James Earl, and I mean, they was always part of the church, even though he was a preacher, and I'm sure he had several churches round about, but he always gravitated here, like this was always home.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a very good preacher. He was very knowledgeable as well, and Miss Edith was really quiet. She was a real sweet lady. She always helped in Bible school and whatever else needed to be done. I'm not sure if Brother Leslie taught us training union class one time, or he was just part of it and had a lot to add to it. But Mama said she loved it when he was there because she always learned more with him there. She says Calvin takes a lot after him. But yeah, they were very good people. Always would help you anything. Mama said he always used to say that back in his day, preachers got paid in canned goods and stuff.
Now, when you moved to where you live now, because when you were a kid, y'all lived up here somewhere, didn't you? Or did you?
No, Daddy did.
Okay, your dad did. So you've
But
always lived on 107.
Right.
So you lived pretty close to them.
Yeah.
Did you have any interactions with them just growing up in the vicinity or anything like that? Or?
I didn't. I never went to their house or anything, but
Gail, what do you remember of Leslie and Miss Edith?
Well, of course, Leslie was called a priest at that, you know, when I was still pretty young. And for us, preaching and, you know, Sunday school teaching. But this is one boy I went to school with when he started first grade. We won't call his name. But Miss Edith must have had a hard goal. Well, because they had, you know, when they have a church, when they go, you know, Sunday service, then they have a night service. They'd always stay there until, you know, night service.
Oh.
And he'd leave the house empty, but she'd always leave a big pie there. And probably, can you imagine when she come home and probably these 10 boys?
Yeah.
10 boys have been there all evening long. Can you imagine what that house looked like?
Gail ate the most of it.
I tried to get my share. But you never heard her say a word. You never heard her say a word about it. And when I spent many nights at Calvin's and Nestle, you know, he's always a fine preacher, fine person. But you know, he'd already, you know, more or less for his church thing, he'd already been called a priest before I was big enough to.
Calvin, Leslie, and Miss Edith.
Yeah, I know them real well. Yeah, Mom and Dad was great. Good parents. They taught us right and wrong. They always made sure we was in church. And my mom was kind of a worry wart, they would call it. She was subject to everything that could happen, you know. Watch out for people on the road. Don't pull out in front of nobody. You know, all this. she worried about us constantly, me and my brother both. Had kind of a hard time in life. She growed up in another home. Our first two kids was born, they couldn't walk or talk. Both of them died. One died in 49, the other died in 52. The doctor told her not to have any more kids. And so she went on and had my brother, but she started taking vitamins, which was part of the problem of my brother and sister had died. And she had James Earl, and the doctor told her, said, whatever you do, don't have any more. And she had me. The healthiest one of the bunch. So I didn't disagree with her, I was, but we had a good life together, good family. Conservative, they had to be, because Daddy didn't make a lot of money on the farm. And he preached, not on a salary, but on volunteer money. And I've told the class several times, I've heard Daddy say that he's preached for $6. And that would be something like $6 a week. But he made most of it. He told me and Dad was real close. He was down and told me, he said, son, you won't believe it. He said, but free will offering is all I've had on my preaching life. And he said, I'm going to tell you something you won't believe, hardly, but it's the truth. He said, I've owned 3 new vehicles. He said, God's took care of me. He told me when he was called into ministry, that God was so dealing with him so much, told him to go up in front of the old house in the woods up there and pray. So he went up there and knelt down and prayed. And he said, Calvin, you won't believe this either. He said, but it's true. He said, I heard a verbal voice speaking to me, straight to me, calling me to preach. So I've accepted that all my life. That's true, because that's biblical. He did call some people that way, but Dad was a good dad. He was a good spiritual leader. Mom was, she was good. They didn't waste nothing. Absolutely nothing. Which conservative, you couldn't blame them, because they grew up during the Depression, and they just learned to live on anything. They would can everything. Now, when they died, I went down there in the basement and threw away 100 jars of stuff Mama had canned. And some of it was 25 and 30 years old. And still preserved, because it's still sealed.
Yeah.
And of course, I wasn't going to eat none of it. I just took it out there and threw it over the fence.
Wish I'd been one of your kids.
Threw it over the fence and kept the jars, washed the jars out. We eventually sold the jars, but they made sure that we was in church, raised right. They took good care of me and the whole family, really. Dad was, I'm going to say this that's straightforward. Jesus is the reason I am what I am today. But Dad was one of the reasons at what I am today financially. Daddy co-signed for me. I had to have a co-signer when I bought my house where we live at now. He co-signed for me. And I paid my house off in 4 years. And I went and bought farms and tractors and stuff and got into the farm. Anytime I needed a co-signer, Daddy would co-sign for me. And I said, Dad, why don't you stick out your neck so much for me to co-sign? He said, I've seen how you handle things. He said, I trust you, that you will. And I told him that I would pay him interest. He had a little money in the bank, and he got a little interest off of it. And I was owed a lot of money. And I said, Dad, I'll tell you what I'll do. I said, I'll give you 2% more than what you drawing. Because I was paying something like 10 and 13% at PCA interest. And that'd be good 2% more for you and be 5% less than me. He said, well, let me think about it. He thought about it. He said, I'm going to do that if you want to do it. I said, yeah, do it. Any time that he wanted, I could go down there and tell him if he had it. loan me $10,000 and he'd do it.
Mm.
And he was one of my great instruments of having what I have today. But God's the center of the whole thing. He took care of our kids. And we sat down and talked a whole lot about church, Bible, and Dad he wasn't highly educated. What he had knowledgeable of is what God gave him. So I miss him, but I wouldn't call him back for nothing. Because they're in a much better place. One amazing thing about them, they're tombs. If you ever dealt the cemetery, go out there and visit their grave. It's always fascinated me ever since I done it. They were both buried out there side by side beside my brother and sister. And they got this, let's see, it's probably about this big around. It's a picture of Mom and Dad standing in front of a church Daddy pastored. That picture, the sun comes up on that picture every day and it comes out. That picture has never faded. I went down there this week and put flowers on their grave at Christmas. And it has never changed. Anytime sunlight will go through in like that on a picture, it'll fade. It'll even fade to automobiles sat down. So, but that picture has never changed. That's amazing. And you can walk up the, walk up the grave, you can just feel the presence of God right around it. The Spirit of God is still, I know there are spirits with them, but the presence of God's everywhere. And you can feel it around there. I believe any of your family, you can feel it, the presence of God in them. Been a great inspiration to me. I don't know where I'd have been today if it hadn't been for them. But anyhow, God protected us, and like Gail said, we grew up together, and we were boys. And boys will do boys, and boys will be boys. But anyhow, God took care of both of us. He preserved us, and this is the reason that we live in today. He preserved us. Yeah.
When you talking about your mama being a weird boy, why don't you tell them about the time she's worried about you staying out late?
Yeah.
So you and James Earl come in early, climbed up on the back porch and through the back window and went to bed.
Yeah.
And she didn't know you come in.
No, if we was late, they told us to be in at 12. We was late, we just go to the television antenna and go up the television antenna and get on the back porch and step over and go through the window, because it didn't have no screen or nothing in it, just open window, bugs and everything. But anyhow, we just step over and step in there and get in the bed.
I'll include that in. That way we won't say nothing about it.
But
We won't say nothing about it. What was your brother and sister's name?
my sister was named Dorothy Jean. My brother was named Billy Joe.
And do I have it right that your mother taught you some piano growing up? Or is that not right?
What was that now?
Did your mother teach you some piano growing up, or have I not got that right? Somebody told me that you were asked to do the music because you had some experience playing piano that your mother had taught you.
Oh yeah, my mother had an old piano. The old piano's down in the basement now. It's kind of rough shape, but she had taught me how to play a piano. And I got to work to play several songs with the piano. And me and her would get in there on the stool, have a big long stool. And I played the piano and we sang together. But I forgot all about the notes now. She had all the notes, know them, you know, and she helped me. And sometimes, most of the time, at least once, maybe 15, 20 minutes, I'd go in there and play that piano. And I got to where I could really play it. But didn't go to any school or nothing. Mama just taught me what she knew. She said, Mama had a great voice, had a sweet voice. One of her favorite songs, she told me one time, she said, son, I just love roses. Said, I just love roses. I think they're so beautiful. And as far as my knowledge, I don't know, she never had any roses. So it come Mother's Day, and it hit me just like, get your mom some roses. And, I went and got her, I believe it was half a dozen or a dozen red roses. And took them, give them to her. She just cried like a baby. And she said, you know, I've said it several times, give me my roses while I'm living.
Is her favorite, I remember that, she's one of her favorite songs.
And, she loved that song, Where the Roses Never Fade.
Hmm.
And we sung that song here at church, but she loved that song. And evidently she's in a place right now where they never do fade.
Hmm.
It's in heaven itself. So you get a lot of spiritual experiences in families. And, Mom was great. She could make some of the best fried pies you ever seen.
Amen.
She was a good
See what I'm
cook.
saying?
She was a good cook.
And she was a good cook, she done it. And there was something fascinating about it too. We had an old wood stove, and the kind that had the long arm handle, and you pushed it down in the thing and picked the cap up. We'd have the wood stove, and when she cooked by, she'd fix our breakfast, everything homemade, just about. Then when she got done with that, she'd wash dishes and she started cooking dinner. And when she got through eating dinner, she'd clean up the dishes, she'd start cooking for supper because that wood, you know, ain't like electricity, just flip it on. And she cooked all her meals on that wood stove till finally they got an electric stove.
What year did y'all get electricity, you remember?
In the old house,
Oh, yeah.
well, I can't remember really.
We got it in 48.
Well, I was born in 44, and so we lived up here in front of Jimmy Kenner's old place where I was born there.
Yeah.
Right across the road there, the old house there. We lived there. Then we moved down there. I really don't know what year how old I was when we moved down there, but
Now, I know y'all got a telephone before we did. 'Cause
Yeah.
We played on the telephone. When we
Yeah.
was at their house. That's true.
Had a party line back then.
Oh, yeah.
it's all Gale's fault. Anything wrong with Gale's fault.
No, then it wasn't no party line.
Oh, you
You
did.
dialed a number and then it had a woman up there who plug it in, you know.
Yeah.
That's before the party line.
Well, before the party line.
You're a youngin'. You're a youngin'.
Hey, grow up. Grow up.
I'm trying.
We had apple orchards down there,
Yeah, I remember.
and Mama, like I say, was preservative. She had this old wooden, I call it, they look like a whiskey barrel. It might have been one, I don't know. But anyhow, she would take paper. She'd wrap every one of these apples individually and put it down there. And if it was in under the house, the temperature would stay pretty well the same under that old house. And she'd wrap every one of them apples in a piece of paper and put it in that barrel. Well, here, like winter, snow on the ground, we go down there and get us a paper out and take the paper off of it and eat the apple. Preservative. Gale even done that too. He don't live with that.
Yes, we did. If anything, we go, let's don't get into this.
Food was a lot better then, I think, than there is now.
Yeah.
Jeff, what do you remember of Leslie and Edith?
My great uncle and great aunt. I enjoyed being around them, listening, especially when my grandmother would go over and visit, or they'd come over and visit, and they'd have peas snapping, bean snapping, corn shucking, and everything else you can think of. I always remember Uncle Leslie had that kind of hat that not a baseball hat, but an old hat, and he'd have a hat on his head all the time. And call my grandmother sis all the time. They'd be talking all different types. And I'm one of these kids that didn't want to go out and play. I wanted to sit and listen to older people. And my grandmother would always fuss, "You need to go out there." No, I'm listening to y'all. I enjoyed listening to the stories of the family, the things that happened. Yeah, they were great. Definitely wonderful.
Miss Nancy, Leslie, and Miss Edith.
I knew them before I came to Antioch. He helped revivals down at Old Forest.
Hmm.
And I learned then how sweet they both were. And then, of course, when I came out here, I found out that they were from Antioch.
Hmm.
And I really thought the world of both of them. They were both good people. And Miss Edith was just a sweetheart. Everybody loved her. And my brother Leslie was too. He was a real nice person.
Hmm.
And they'd do anything for you.
Do you remember what he was like as a preacher?
He was a a good preacher. He knew that Bible.
Hmm.
He sure did. You didn't have to study for a minute for something it was.
No, he didn't. He could be
He
able to
fit
quote it.
right to her.
Hmm. Was he animated, or was he kind of a stay behind the lectern kind of fellow? Did he get up and move around, shout, or was he more
He
like?
pretty well stayed behind the pulpit.
Okay. I'm interested in that personally. I always wondered about that. Miss Joyce, Leslie, and Miss Edith.
I knew them real well. They'd come over to Annie's and sit around and talk, and then we would go over to their house sometimes, and like for Christmas or something, and Annie has invited us, me and Milton, and Jeff, if he was here. I don't know what year it was, but anyway, we went over there twice, I think, for Christmas, and she was a real good cook, and she was really sweet, and Uncle Leslie was sweet too. And they seemed like one of my own aunt and uncles.
Michael?
I guess he was at other churches more when I was small, but, you know, when I remember him here, it was later years, and you know, he was, I mean, I remember him preaching some here, but not a lot. But I remember him as much as anything about his actions with, like, the congregation, not during the service, like, you know, outside the service. He was more like I'd call him like a peacemaker. He wanted to make sure everything was going smooth, and, you know, with everybody, and, you know, he was really involved with the congregation, even when, I mean, he wasn't pastor here, but, you know, he was very interested in that. And of course, like I said, that was later years, and I remember, you know, her and her helping with the meals and stuff, you know, more then.
Was he close with your parents? Or either of them, were they close?
They was older, so I don't remember them being that close with them.
Were they close? Wilmer and Leslie, or Edith and Miss Mammy Nell, were they friends?
Oh, yeah, they were friends. They were friends. Now, I just figured to say a while ago, Leslie and Danny went to Bethel College on Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, you wasn't supposed to be educated to be a preacher. I mean, they were ridiculed for going to college.
Yeah.
And they were friends, and Mom and Edith they went to church all together, all right together. And if you was in Antioch Baptist Church, you was friends.
Yeah, and we've got their the textbook that they learned out of up in the church library, Haley's Handbook, which is what they used when they took their classes
I've got
there.
a copy of it.
Yeah. All right, Arlie and Dallas Stinson. Dallas was born 1910, died 1994. Arlie was born 1918, died 2006. Miss Jennifer, did you know the Stinsons?
Oh yeah, Arlie was my Sunday school teacher for years. She had the youth. And back then, there was a lot of them. Because all the Ballard children and some of the Sears children and then Odney and kids.
Right.
But there were a lot of Ballards and
Mhm.
Searses. But she had all of them. And she done the class by herself, basically. So, I mean, she's a little old lady in there, but she could corral them boys. She was good. And she was always having, like, taco parties at her house, like on holidays. And she'd do lock-ins and skating parties, you know, just whatever kids like to do. She'd get it going. And Dallas, he just, sure, whatever you want to do. He was very soft-spoken. He just, he was one of those people that didn't say a lot, but what he said, had some meaning to it,
Hmm.
if you know what I mean. You know, if something was going on in the church or whatever, and people asked his opinion on it, a lot of times he'd say, well, let me think on that a little bit, and I'll get back with you. And he usually, he would, work it out in his head. And I think he was a treasurer at one time
Hmm.
here at the church, and that Kelsey Dunn was his great-granddaughter. They got killed in the accident this past summer.
Oh.
But Arlie and Dallas, they were both very good people.
Gail, Arlie and Dallas Stinson. Do you remember them?
Well, of course, see, Dallas was a second cousin. And, my Uncle Charlie was Dallas's daddy.
Okay.
And of course, he was a brother to my granddaddy.
Right.
And like he said, he was really hard work. He was up in his 80s, and he could outwork. If you knew Rob and Julia Johnson, they through the working people, and he worked with them.
Mm.
I mean, he was really hard worker. Like she said, I remember James Earl talking about. Said you ask him something, he'd say, "Well, just let me think it over a little while." He wouldn't give you a quick answer. But I remember one time I was talking, and I said something about somebody being a show off. He said, "Well," said, "a man ain't much of a man. He'll put his best foot for farmers."
Mm.
And we were like family. We lived on one side of the hill where David Sears lives now, and then they lived on. Then Uncle Charlie lived on the other side of the hill where Schutz lives.
Okay.
And then, of course, I never could figure out why that Uncle Charlie. And every Christmas, Santa Claus's sleigh would break down, and it'd come in, and Uncle Charlie's on 34 floors. I couldn't figure that out. But we were actually their kids and everything we're just like brothers, kind of like, it is our house now. And we play together and still, and we just like brothers. And then, of course, I knew Miss Arlie's first husband, Obie Dillon Johnson. He taught here for a while, and he had a class with the boys, and he took me and my brothers down there and showed us how to take films, make oh shoot, I can't think of it.
What, make a movie or something?
No, where you develop.
Oh, how to develop films.
Develop films.
Huh.
He showed us how to do that in a dark room, and
Huh.
we go down there. We went down there and developed friends, and then, when he passed away, and then Dallas and Harley got together, and, and we always thought a lot of all of them. But
I knew I'd heard I know I've heard Dallas's name quite a bit, so I'm glad you filled that in, that he was the treasurer for a while, as I've heard his name quite a bit here. Calvin, Dallas, and Arlie Stinson.
Yes, the great in the church, Dallas was a treasurer, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Okay, and she was a teacher. They was a good couple in the church. I know Mr. Dallas, actually more than I did her. He was real active in the church. He was a big hunter. He was a duck hunter and a bird hunter, and he liked to talk hunting. So most time me and him got together, we would talk about hunting. But something I always remember about Brother Dallas, he never answered your question right off the bat.
That's the theme. I don't think he ever answered anybody's question right off the bat.
You asked him a question, and I could remember the words just as plain as day. Give me just a moment to think about it. And that's what he done. He thought about it before he ever answered it.
Now, what are you asking him? Are you saying, is there a God, or are you asking him, do you want to go hunting on Thursday? I mean,
Well,
how?
both spiritual church and hunting.
He just didn't answer anything
Most of
right
church
off.
though, before he answered, it was church. It was serious stuff.
Huh.
it's serious stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's spiritual stuff.
We done a lot of hunting. I mean,
Okay.
you know the dog's name?
That's one thing I really remember about him. He was a hard worker. He was the only guy in this country that had cattle over here on the farm over here. And I had cows down there well, across about a 20-acre field, and limbs would blow out of trees, and deers would tear the barbed wire down. I was fixing fences all the time over there. You could go down the road on Mr. Dallas's side, it'd be one strand of barbed wire about that high from the ground. The cows could have just stepped over it and walked out. They was all out there in the field just grazing along. It's like it, was a 10-strand barbed wire fence over there. And all they had to do was step over it. They didn't have to raise their leg that high. Step over it and get out, and they never did. And I was over there just every day, just about. And I thought, God must be on your side to say anything like this.
Well, they were Jersey cows, and I can remember when you walk in the barn lot, he's milking. He would know the strangers coming around, boy, the cows out.
But he was a treasurer a long time here, wasn't he?
I guess so. That was
Several years and years and years. I remember Miss Harley, she was plain spoken.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, straightforward. There wasn't no cut corners or nothing. She
Just then, she didn't take a second to answer, she answered.
Yeah. Good people. Get a blessing to be around them, really. Yeah.
Jeff, what do you remember of Dallas and Arlie?
Oh, they were great. I will tell a story one time that we had a trip scheduled as a youth group for Mammoth Cave. Well, nobody showed up except for me and Paul. And Arlie and Dallas still took us up to Mammoth Cave. We get in line. I had just turned 16, and the cutoff age was 16 and below or something like you get discount. Paul hadn't turned 16 yet, but he's like a foot higher than me and a whole lot bigger. So I tell him my age, and unfortunately I have to say I sinned. I lied about my age, and Paul told them his age, and they looked him over 3 or 4 times. But yeah, they would do anything for us. But she kept that Sunday school. She knew how to get everybody in line, and she'd stay up in that choir. And if me and Paul was back there misbehaving, and Mom and Miss and Moody didn't know it, she'd give us an evil eye too. She's like, get in line.
Miss Nancy, what do you remember about Mr. Dallas
I
and Miss
liked
Arlie?
them both. And I liked Arlie's first husband too. He was a mess. But they, after Arlie, I think she retired. They moved in front of the street from my house over there behind me, and they were my neighbors.
Oh.
Yeah.
And Arlie and Myrtle and Christine and I, we got together every Sunday night and came to church together. And then we would ride around when the summertime, when the days were long, and sightsee. We had the best time. But I really thought a lot of Arlie and Dallas. They was what you'd say really, really good Christian people.
What did she retire from?
Had red cap.
Okay. Miss Joyce, what do you remember of the Stinsons?
Well, I didn't know Dallas as much as I did Arlie, but Arlie was a sweet person. And whatever you asked her to do, she'd do it. And she took care of Jeff in Sunday school. and she was a good teacher. And that's about all I can remember. I just remember seeing her. I can picture her now, though.
Mm-hmm.
She was a sweet person. And he was, too, as far as I know.
Michael, what about the Stinsons?
Yeah, I remember Arlie a lot about, like they was talking about being a youth teacher, and I guess it was almost a younger youth than what we would call the youth now. Our youth class was a little older, but she was very involved, and she didn't want nobody to be left out. I mean, she was very conscious about, keeping everybody involved and, doing for everybody, and like he was talking about, them going on that trip, that don't surprise me at all, that if they're the ones that showed up, they was going.
Yeah.
And Brother Dallas, I don't remember as much about him, but, it was more like you said, if you had a question about the church or, something like that, what was going on or something, he would say, I mean, he wouldn't answer right off. He'd make sure that, you know, he had it right, and, you know, he was very conscious about that. And he was, I know he helped me, like when we was doing the fish fries down there at Coon Range Lake, you know, he would always work with that. And I mean, he was an older man, you know, then, but he would work with the far, because it was wood far for a big fish pan, you know. And he was good with that, and very active in the church. But I remember him being treasurer too, but I don't remember how long it was.
Your father was treasurer too, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Did he hand it off to your father?
I was trying to think if it was the other way. I think it was the other way. Well, my dad.
It was before, yeah.
Okay. All right. So would he have handed it off to you?
Yes.
We're getting close on time. I want to make sure, because next week Miss Jennifer won't be here and Gail's likely not to. I want to make sure we do Juanita Key tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and do Miss Juanita, and we'll do the interim next week. So Juanita Key was born 1923 and died in 2017. I have her husband as Thurman Odell. Do I have that correct? Born 1915, died 1989. Miss Jennifer, what do you remember of Miss Juanita?
Well, Miss Juanita was one of those people that I don't think I ever heard anybody ever say anything bad about. Everybody loved her, and she loved everybody. I think she had a fairly rough childhood, and I don't know how she met Odell or whatever, but I know Odell had a daughter when they got married, and Barbara, and I mean, she raised, even though Barbara's mother was still alive, she, you know, just raised Barbara just like she did her other kids, you know, and she was a fabulous cook. She was another one that was famous for her fried pies.
Yeah.
And of course, I reckon all of her kids could cook, and of course, she only had one son, Clark, that got killed in an auto accident, married to Karen, and he was wonderful with horses. And everybody, you know, I got a horse you need to break, and he'd do it. It didn't matter to him. But Miss Juanita worked as I don't know that she was necessarily a nurse, but she worked at Dr. McHenry's office. And so any time that I would get sick, it seemed like I was always sick, Mama would call her, and she'd come down and do whatever she could, and it usually worked. And I mean, she was just like that. She'd do anything at all for you, and you know, she was one of those people. She wanted everybody to be involved. She thought everybody should have a place and do something. You know, she just had a hand in everything she could up until she just was not able to do it. She led the WMU, she was Sunday school teacher, she did Bible school, I mean, you name it, she did it. And I know it, she hated when she got to where she couldn't do it, because she enjoyed it. She not only, I guess, felt a calling to do it, she enjoyed to do it. And of course, Odell, he was a very quiet person. I don't really ever remember seeing him at church very much. I think he was a barber. But, you know, she was just sort of one of a kind type of person.
Gail, what do you remember of Juanita and Odell?
Well, Miss Juanita, of course, like I said, Miss Odell was kind of hard on Miss Juanita. We won't go to, you know, and he didn't come to church. But Miss Juanita was a saint, you know, almost a saint. And she raised they raised all their children. She made sure they was in church. Of course, now them kids was kind of kids, because I remember when Clark was a little boy, one time he passed the collection place, he said, "Mom, give me $200 put in there." Another time, he was acting up, and she started taking him out the river and said, Daddy, Daddy, help me. Said, Mama gonna whip me. But he turned out to be, Clark was an amazing person. Like he would get these horses from out west and break them.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a horseman up one side and down the other, and he had sleep acne.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd go see the doctor on Thursday, I think, well, on Tuesday. He'd go to work real early in the morning. And he had a wreck over there on Sherman Road, and it killed him.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a fine person, really good person. And of course, like you said, Miss Juanita was in about everything. I mean, I know she's a Sunday school teacher. I remember having a Christmas party there at her house. And then it was just a basement, that's all it was. But Billy fell off of the steps and hit his head, but I mean, that's. But yeah, she was just, and this is nice. Well, I tell you, I forgot what was wrong with her. She wasn't hardly able to go. And the neighbor across the road, Collins Ramsey, let the fire get out. And here she come with 2 buckets of water.
Mm.
And she shouldn't even been packing them. And you just, really just can't say nothing bad about her. I can't.
Calvin, Juanita, and Odell.
Odell, when I was a boy, Daddy used to take us down there and he cut me and my brother's hair. He was a barber, he was a farmer too.
Well, he was a school teacher too. He had been a school teacher.
Yeah.
I don't think a school teacher then.
I don't remember much about him in church. I don't think he come very much.
No, he didn't.
And, but that's how I knew him. Miss Juanita, I've known her years and years and years. Sweet woman, good to be around, great in the church, great spirit about her. Loved everybody. A lot of things happened. I'll never forget a couple of things that happened with Miss Juanita. We used to go to the nursing home, and I'd go down and get Mom and Dad, and Miss Juanita called me a time or two, wanted me to pick her up, go to the nursing home with us. I said, I will. So we went to the nursing home, come back, and pulled in the driveway, kind of pulled up to the house there, and kind of got close as I could get to the sidewalk, and light come on, the outside light come on. Mama grabbed Miss Juanita, said, Miss Juanita, said, don't go in the house, said, somebody's in there, they just turned the light on for you. I said, oh? And it was one of them movement lights.
Oh.
And when I pulled up far enough to keep that light on, well, Mama had never seen one, evidently. And she grabbed Miss Juanita, I never get along down there. I laughed till I turned blue. She said, Miss Juanita, come get out. Said, is somebody in your house that just turned the light on for you? I said, right, Mama, you know a crook will do that? It was time I went down there to see if she wanted to go to the nursing home, and she was down in the basement, and she was washing the window. It's a window about this, sorry, you might know what it looked like, about this tall, about this wide. She was up there wiping that. And I hollered, Miss Juanita, she must have had a radio or something on. Miss Juanita, and she getting back on attention. I thought, well, I'll just have me a little fun out, Miss Juanita. Well, she got up there in that window on the inside doing this, washing the window. Well, I took my hand on the outside and got to doing this. She went, oh! She screamed to the top of her voice. She come up there and she said, you scared the lights out of me. I said, well, I thought I'd have a little fun, get your attention, get you up here. She didn't have no idea, but she was a remarkable spiritual woman. She was she was a great access to the church, always involved in everything we done. Cooking, she was a fine cook. These people are special people that just died that we talking about. It's just a privilege and a blessing to be living and share life with them. Every one of them There was a great effect to every one of us' life here, and we know that. And they had taught us everything that we should know. They were really spiritual leaders. She was one of them. She was one of them. Miss her.
I don't know Juanita, I don't remember Odell at all, but I do remember Juanita being down at Dr. McHenry's office, and I think she got me over the fear of needles, because every time I go in there, Dr. McHenry's order a shot, so here she come with the needle. And I hated needles back then, but now I was like, oh no, give me a needle, let me get over this, I don't want to have it any longer. But yes, she was wonderful in everything, and always caring and loving, and like I said, I've heard no word against her, and I don't think she ever spoke a word against anyone else. She was fantastic.
Miss Nancy.
I can remember Odell coming to preaching for a while,
Okay.
but I never heard him say a word,
Mm.
and I never seen him speak to anybody. So that's all I know about him, but Miss Barbara, oh my goodness, Miss Bonita, I loved her. She's the sweetest thing. And like everybody has said, you could have beat her into church. She could do anything, and she done it, and she's happy doing it. She loved doing for the Lord, and all the members. And you had sickness in your family, and here she was with food, and seeing what she could do, help you. Still miss her.
I remember she'd have us 17 kids, and she would wipe down everything in that kitchen. Y'all might remember it. She'd just wipe the ear, and she'd wipe everything. She made sure everything was spotless. Yeah.
Miss Joyce.
Yeah, she was a sweet person, and as long as I know her, she would do for anybody when anybody asked her to do for them. And she was a Sunday school teacher, and she was in teen kids, and was she a training union teacher? I can't remember that.
I think she'd had something to do with it.
Well, she was real good in the church. She always worked for the church and for the Lord. And she was really sweet. She picked up a lot of kids to bring to church, too. But she was real sweet.
Michael.
I don't really remember much about Odell at all. I mean, I've seen him a few times, but when I was old enough to remember, I don't remember him ever stepping inside the church, but now he could have, but I think it was before then, I don't know. But, you know, Miss Juanita, she was involved in whatever needed to be done. I mean, just everything. And of course, you know, I've heard Karen say, you know, about her, and I talked about her, said, she treated me just like a daughter, even though it was daughter-in-law, but, you know, she treated her. And I never seen her treat anybody bad. I mean, it was just anybody that needed, like they was talking about help or food or, you know, just encouragement, whatever. She was a good lady.
She lived heading towards Elkton on 106 on the right. Have I got that right? Okay. I believe that the first trial sermon I did here at Antioch was the week after her funeral. And I remember that because I felt like I'd walked into a funeral. I mean, the church was just destroyed emotionally. I could tell that everybody was just emotionally destroyed. So I could tell even then that she was a very beloved person, having never met her and never known anybody really at all that did. I just could tell that everybody was really zapped from her passing. So,
Like I told you the other day, with the people we're talking about here, it's just a small part of them. Of course, Mama had 6 kids. Ian had 2. Miss Juanita had 5 kids. You know, just the ones that come every Sunday, the church was full. You know, we talk about the Nelsons. That's nothing unusual back then. And then after the girls got big enough, they brought their boys, and so they brought their boyfriends, and you know, when no problem for the church to grow.
yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it when it's full.
Yeah.
But like I said, there was a lot of good people, and they all kids that made sure they had to be there. And
Yeah, when everybody had 5, 6, and 7 kids, you didn't need but 8 families to fill the church.
well, that's about what we had. Mama,
Yeah.
oh, that'll come along kind of late. She had 6 kids,
Yeah.
and then there's one there, I think, 5 kids, and then of course Calvin James Earl, and then Harris had 2. Had one kid. Oh, Woodrow brother.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and of course then there was Rodney Johnson, his brother,
Yeah.
and
Letitia and Phyllis.
Hmm?
Letitia and Phyllis.
Did we have an enrollment in Sunday school, 120 back then?
Yes, we
Uh-huh.
did.
That was actually 125 for us. But when M night came, we had 130. We still didn't get that banner. Training or anything.
I know we had
Attendance about.
Yes.
a young people class on training union right here, and it was full because like you said, the kids that the parents made them come, then they brought their girlfriends and boyfriends, and it was full.
Well, I am really proud, and we'll have to close on this, that maybe a week or 2 ago, James was here on his 16th birthday on a Wednesday night for church. And there was another young lady here whose name escapes me, but it was her 15th birthday, and she was here on a Wednesday night for church. There's so few children and youths that even go to church on Wednesdays now, much less on their birthday, much less on their 16th birthday. So I was very proud of those 2, and we've got more like them, but got a good group of young people coming up now. The numbers may not be what they once were, but we also have to keep in mind the world that we live in and that this is Antioch. I mean, we're out in the sticks now, and people don't have 5, 6, and 7 kids anymore. So I'm proud of what we've got, and I'm thankful for y'all sticking here and sticking it out and being faithful to the church all these years.
I see Angie was back again this morning.
Yeah, Miss Angie and Hayden came back. I'm praying for them and pray God blesses them. Thank you all for being here tonight.